Good evening, everyone. For those who are just joining us, thank you for joining us. Thank you for giving up your evening. For those who don't know me, my name is Mark from Broadway Travel. We are joined by Andy at AE Expeditions, and we are very excited about this presentation because expedition cruising is a really big talking point at the moment, and I've seen this presentation. There's some real mesmerising pictures in here. So hope you'll enjoy it. Without further ado, I'm going to hand over to Andy, and I'm going to give you a 20-minute warning.
Okay, thank you. Good evening, everyone. Hopefully I'm loud enough. I also have a very nasty habit of running very, very fast with my words. So if I start getting fast at any point, raise your hand and tell me to slow down. I like to say it's passion, but yeah, I can just be enthusiastic. I want to talk a little bit about expedition cruising, which is what we do at AE Expeditions. As Mark said, it's kind of big buzzword in travel at the moment. It's something that has grown exponentially in the last few years, and I think everyone's read about it and seen people like Susan Calman going to the Antarctic, and there's a lot being said about it, but it's come very, very fast. So I want to try and this evening show you what a real expedition is like and to really put that image into your mind as a trip to go to. So to start with, what is an expedition? I think a lot of us in the UK in particular get a bit worried about the term expedition because we're going and getting lost, we're going to the middle of nowhere, we're going to go and hike and do a bit of adventure, and the words I often get going, it sounds lovely, but can I do it? And very much everyone in this room can do it. So when you find an expedition, it is a small ship cruise. It is not a cruise like going to the Mediterranean. We're not pulling into ports, we haven't got a casino on board. It's a safari on ice. We're going to destinations where there is no road, there is no cars. We need the ships to get to these desolate places. So this is your home for the next 2 weeks. We're going to go out on zodiac explorations and go and look at beautiful things like glaciers. When we go out for a couple of hours, you get talks by your expedition team while you're exploring. We might go ahead and enjoy the most beautiful geological sites such as Acufella. You can see all of these little black dots around. This is a colony of guillemots where there are 16,000 guillemots that come here purely to lay eggs for 2 or 3 months in Svalbard. And as you can see, they're all in the air. And actually what they're doing now is the babies are fledging. Babies can't fly when they leave. They can swim though, so here they go and dive into the water. So whilst you're actually in there, you can see here the zodiacs, and literally the babies are falling down all around you as you go around. Stunning wildlife. We'll go and do a couple of little hikes and explorations. Down here we have some lovely dinosaur footprints that are in the rock that have been formed thousands of years ago. So we'll go off and explore some beaches and some areas and go for a little hike for maybe a few hours in a day. You'll be joined by the expedition team, so while we're going out, this is Marcos, he's a geologist. I've spent a week on board with Marcos, and I tell you that limestone has never been the most fascinating thing in the world until he spoke to me. So as you're out and about having a walk and an explore, Marcus will be telling you a little bit about the geology, those amazing dinosaur footprints. You may also decide to go and have a little hike on an iceberg. So here's me and some colleagues, and this is an iceberg that was about the size of this room floating in the ocean, and we were having a walk on it for 20 minutes or so. Fantastic opportunity to do photography, in particular wildlife photography, either from the ship, the Zodiac, or on land. So if you are a budding photographer, whether that is with your phone or with one of these big bazooka cameras, you get the most amazing experiences to do some brilliant photography. And of course, the main big draw to a lot of people is the wildlife. So here you are, relaxing on your Zodiac, and a lovely little furry friend just up on the coast there that we're seeing. It's about 200 meters away that you're seeing that polar bear. And that's that same guy up close having dinner time. If you are wanting to, you can up the ante a little bit and be adventurous. We do include things such as kayaking, snorkeling, skiing, so if you do want to push yourself to that next level, you can do. My personal favourite in terms of adventure activities is always our polar plunge, where you decide to go for a little dip into the cold waters. I'd never ask you to do anything I haven't done myself. The video that attaches that is 22 seconds long from when I'm on the ship to when I'm back on the ship. That water was minus 1.5. I've never felt so alive, but it's fun. But it's an experience is the best way I can say it. And just to give you an idea, those photos that I just showed you, that is one sailing in Svalbard. That was 10 days that I was on board in August last year. So that's not the opportunity that you could do by going on 3 or 4 different destinations. That was 10 days on the same ship in the same exploration. So it really is such a plethora of experiences, scenery, wildlife in a short time. Your typical expedition day is going to include a little bit of all of those things on them as well. You'll wake up in the morning, we'll have breakfast, we'll go out for a Zodiac cruise. They usually last about an hour and a half, an hour and 45 minutes, where we'll go and explore those icebergs, those glaciers. Come back on board the ship for lunch, maybe an hour or so downtime after to sit in the library, read a book, have a coffee and check your photos from the morning. And then we'll go off and do a walk and a hike. You might see some historical sites. We may do a citizen science experience. Because we're going to these remote regions, we go to places where scientists can't get to easily as well. So we're constantly working with universities and NGOs and providing them data. So you may join a science experiment collecting data for a few hours. We do also provide in the evening and the afternoon expert lectures. So if you've been out that afternoon and you've seen a polar bear, in the early evening before dinner we might have a 45-minute lecture on polar bears, so you can find out that polar bear you saw in the afternoon, was it a male, was it a female, how old it is. The expedition team really pull in together those experiences day by day and bring them to life with added extras on board. I hate the term lecture because I think it often sounds very sort of dry and heavy, but when you're doing these experiences, the passion that these guys have get you absolutely absorbed and you want to know more and see more. And then we are joined, as mentioned, by our expedition team. For us, we're really fortunate we have 1 expedition team member per every 7 guests. The average in the industry is 1 per every 10 guests. So we've got a much closer atmosphere on board. You get a lot of time with the expedition team. They come from all over the world and they're specialists in their areas. So on a typical sailing, you will have a historian, a naturalist, a glaciologist, because you can have a doctorate in ice, whale experts, people who are experts on the history of the expedition era, Inuit guides for when we go into places like Greenland to teach you about local cultures, and they're just so beautifully passionate about what they do. It's a company we've been working for 34 years now, just over, as we've started the year. We've got some of our expedition team who've been with us for the full length of time, so they've been going to Antarctica 34 years in a row. Some of them may have only worked with us 10 years, but actually the previous 10 years they were stationed in these scientific research stations in Antarctica and spent 6 months at a time living there. So their intense knowledge and passion for these destinations blows through so easily. I know on this photo, this gentleman, Christophe, is one of our expedition leaders. He's a beautiful French gentleman, and I can tell you in the morning, the best wake-up call I ever have is Christophe coming on town at 7 AM going, "Good morning, expeditioners, it is a beautiful polar day, open the curtains and look around you," and he just, every morning, you're excited for what's going to happen the next day. For us as a company at AE Expeditions, so it's just slightly changed now we've gone into January, we've been operating for 34 years. I do always like to say the best things in life are 34 years old as well. And we are an Australian-owned and operated company, so we are a very Australian atmosphere on board. Everybody is on first name basis, everyone is your mate. We're not a dress up for dinner, it's not champagne thrown at you every 2 or 3 hours. We want people to come on board and make family and relax and get to know one another as well. Of course there is champagne, if you want it, there's definitely champagne, but it's not about the traditional cruise, it's about coming together and the adventure. We were founded by a gentleman here called Greg Mortimer. He means absolutely nothing to us in the UK, but in Australia it's a very big deal. He's the first Australian to climb Mount Everest and K2. He's also the first known human to climb Mount Minto, which is the 2nd highest mountain in Antarctica. So very much led as a company by adventure, discovery and exploration. Greg is 74, and in November he celebrated his 74th birthday by being the expedition leader on a 21-day sailing of South Georgia. So while he doesn't own the company anymore, he still takes the ships out, he still leads the expeditions, and he's still with us very much to this day, and he's just the most fascinating man. We are also a B Corporation, so B Corp means benefit for all. It is a 3-year process that we went through to prove that we are a sustainable, ethical company, that we've been assessed for very harshly, and it checks everything we do. We are currently the only cruise line in the world that has this, so you appreciate when travelling to places like the polar regions, they are fragile, they need to be looked after, and when travelling with us, we do look after it. It covers so many different areas, so it can be things such as we have no single-use plastic on board, but it covers so many different areas as well. So for example, when it comes to food and drink on board, when we're in Antarctica, all of our meat comes from one farmer in Argentina. We know him very, very well. He's a lovely guy. We're helping him become organic. Our fruit and vegetable comes from only 6 farmers. So we're not like a cruise line in the way that's shipping food from around the world just for what's in our fancy. It's local, it's sustainable, it's seasonal. So we cover this into so many different levels of how we work as a company. It's something I'm very, very proud of. The difference with us, as mentioned, we're very positive impact. We are pioneers of small ship travel. So I'll show you the ship shortly, but our ships hold a maximum of 130 passengers on board. So you can get a nice, intimate experience. Super important, particularly when we're in the Antarctic region, because you can only have 100 passengers on land at a time legally. I have a workaround that guarantees every one of you can go off, even if the ship is full, because I have a very strong activity program. That is taking passengers who are doing things like the snowboarding, skiing, kayaking. That always takes 30 people away, so 100 of us are left to do in landing. A lot of expedition ships are between 200 and 500 passengers in size, so they'll rotate you. And I couldn't think of anything worse in the sense that if you went out in the morning on a Zodiac, I went hiking, we'd sit at lunch, you'd tell me you'd seen a whale, I'd see the penguin, we both feel we've missed out on seeing the wrong thing. With our ship, because we're so small, our expedition team will be in the bridge, look over and go, penguin colony on the tannoy. Ladies and gentlemen, we found a penguin colony, 15 minutes, let's meet in the mud room, we're going to go and explore. So we have that great flexibility to go out as many times as we want to in the day to see as much of those destinations. We're very much destination and wildlife first, ship comes second. Very strong on education enrichment, as you mentioned, and as I say, more time off ship, and as I showed you before, the most amazing expedition team. What is included when you're traveling with us? So all of your experiences are included, so all of those Zodiac excursions, all of those landings are included as part of your sailing. We include alcoholic drinks with dinner, soft drinks throughout the rest of the day. The only thing you'll be spending on board is if you want any premium alcohol. I live in London. It is cheaper for me to get drunk on the ship than it is for me to get drunk in a pub in London these days. So we're not, again, like a big cruise line that charges $10 US for a beer, plus gratuity, plus tax. It's about $5 for a beer, $6 for a gin. So if you are wanting those extra drinks, very, very reasonable as well. Includes Starlink Wi-Fi, so if you do need to keep in touch with work, to do some emails, if you want to keep in touch with your family, or if you want to just go on social media and show off your amazing iceberg photos, you can do so. It's not strong enough to stream Netflix, it's not strong enough to have a video call, but it's strong enough for you to be able to keep in touch with everyone while you're away so you don't go missing for 2 weeks per se. We always include your 3-in-1 waterproof expedition jacket as well. So there is an inner puffer coat and there is an outer waterproof, windproof jacket. They're your permanent souvenir for you to take home as well. And we provide muck boots for the duration of your voyage. Muck boots are halfway between a welly and a hiking boot. They go up to just below your knee. They're waterproof, so when you do the beach landings, you stay nice and dry. Really strong and sturdy for you to go and do those walks and hikes. So they're included during the sailing. Don't take them home because they take too much room. Professional photographer on every voyage. They do multiple jobs. First of all, they're going to take hundreds of photos of the sailing. It's not going to be candid photos, it's just going to be, oh look, whale, take a photo of this. Oh, you're having a good time. About 2 to 3 months after your sailing, you'll get an email from us going, hope you had a lovely time in Antarctica, here is your trip. And you'll have about 50 or 100 professional grade photographs for you to keep. You can download them, you can create your own copy book, you can share them with your friends. The photographers will also do photography lessons on board, so it doesn't matter if you're just taking your iPhone, we have iPhone photography classes. We also have specialist classes for if you are a photographer and want to get the most out of it. As you can tell, there's a lot of white and a lot of blue, so how to get the best sort of destination with those photos. And we do special photography Zodiacs as well, so even if you're an amateur and just want to learn a little bit more, there's those opportunities. And in terms of the cost, it's just simple. It's one total cost. There's no separation of taxes or add-ons or anything. The price is the price, simply done. In terms of extras, we do have our optional activity program, which is a pay extra. Some of them are a little bit intense and need a bit of previous experience. So for example, something like scuba diving, you do need to be dry suit and cold weather certified already. For your skier, you do need to be a black level skier already. But some of them are super accessible. So things like the snowshoeing, can you walk? Fantastic, you can come and do the snowshoeing program. Snorkeling, can you swim? You can do that. Camping, can you lie on your back? If you you do that, you can join the camping program for one night and get to sleep out on the ice, which is an amazing experience as well. Not compulsory, optional extras, but if it's something to elevate that experience for you. I did the snorkeling this year. I have never snorkeled anywhere in the world before, so it was new to me, and it was just absolutely magical to be able to swim with the penguins in the water as well and see those icebergs from under the water. As I mentioned, we also have the citizen science programs, so these are little optionals that you can join, and we do these throughout the sailing. Things such as the Happy Whale Project. Whales, their fluke in their tail is the equivalent of a fingerprint for a human, so we want photos of those. You then text those photos to the Happy Whale Project, and they'll text you back and go, "That's George, 6 months ago he was in Mexico." I checked, there are 2 Georges they are following. If they've got a whale that they're not following already, they'll email you back and go, "Can you name it?" And that's a project that they're following migration patterns around the world, so it's going towards scientific studies, but you get to participate in this and learn a bit on the way as well. In terms of the ships, we have 3 ships in our fleet. I think our ships look like something out of Thunderbirds because they're a bit upside down. So they're all sister ships of one another. They're Ulstein X-bow ships, which are the latest expedition ship technology designed for being in the polar regions. So as you would expect, they are icebreakers. They are a Norwegian design, and the Norwegians are so proud of them that I believe it is the 50 krona note. The Ulstein X-bow is featured on it, so very, very cool technology. They are, as I say, icebreakers, so this bow, this upside down bow is designed to break the ice, but it also slices the waves apart. So if you're someone who's a bit worried about seasickness, it stops you getting pitching back and forth. I'm someone who gets seasick on a pedalo. I'm great on these ships. Everything you need in terms of an expedition is included on here. So we have a lovely lecture theatre on board for all of your lectures and your recaps of the day. Great little bar to be able to chill. Onboard dining, so we have 2 restaurants on board every ship. So the main dining room, breakfast and lunch is buffet, like in a ski holiday. In the evening is a la carte. There is no set dining, so you can come in whenever the restaurant is open. You can have a table for 2. In the evening you might want to share with people. I always find at breakfast everyone stays on the table of 2 because you've not had coffee yet, you don't want to speak to your husband yet, let alone anyone else. And then in the evening it's that table of 10 which feels quickest because you've had a great day with people and you want to share your stories. We do also have a specialty restaurant on board, completely inclusive in your fare as well, so a steak restaurant that you can enjoy with. One of my favourite spots is the observation lounge, so it's got another bar up there as well, and when you've got polar night, so it can look like this at midnight. Great way to relax in the evening, play a game of cards in that perfect sun that will confuse you a little bit, the timing. But some lovely little luxury touches as well. Been out in the ice all day, maybe you might want to relax in the sauna for a little bit, or the hot tubs, very much my favourite spot after dinner. Go after dinner, take your glass of wine and see all the icebergs after a lovely day, it's beautiful. In terms of your cabins, these are our balcony staterooms, which make up about 85% of what we have on board. So you've got your own private balcony, king-size bed, 42-inch square TV with movies and TV loaded, so if you want a relaxed evening and a bit of privacy, you can do that. In all of the bathrooms, we have underfloor heating. So my top tip in the morning, go for breakfast, leave your long johns on the floor, and when you go out for the Zodiac, they're all nice and toasty. What's great about the balconies is because we do prioritise the wildlife. So if at 3 o'clock in the morning there is a pod of 20 humpback whales, we will put the tannoy on at 3 AM and go, "Ladies and gentlemen, there's whales outside the ship." So all you need to do is put your dressing gown on and stand on your balcony. You don't need to get dressed, you don't need to mix with everybody else. You can go out, get those photos, and 20 minutes later be back and cosy in bed. We do also have suites available as well, so if anyone wants that little bit of extra room, or if you're travelling with friends or family, you can easily connect a suite to a stateroom and have like a living area and 2 bedrooms as needed as well. Onboard mudroom, so this is where you'll head down on deck 3, you get your mud boots, you get your jackets on, and then to leave is 1 step down. I often get told by people, "Oh, I don't think I'm fit enough to go on an expedition." There is one thing I need to ask you to do. Can you take 1 step down from the ship onto the Zodiac? That's all you need to be able to do in terms of getting on and off the ship, so super accessible in that sense. We're not asking you to do huge hikes if you don't need to. It's very flexible in that sense. For our destinations, we are polar experts and we've been doing that a very long time, but we do also have some warm weather destinations as well because we've got a lot of clients who keep repeating business with us. So we do, in the southern hemisphere, Antarctica, including East Antarctica and the Ross Sea, South Georgia and the Falkland Islands, and then when we do our Arctic season, you're looking at Norway, Svalbard, Jan Mayen, Greenland, my personal favourite, Canada, Northwest Passage, and Iceland, and then our hot weather destinations, Scotland. Surprisingly warm compared to there. Costa Rica, Raja Ampat in Indonesia, and Patagonia as well. In terms of Antarctica, it's always that headline that everyone really wants to do, that seventh continent. When's the right time to go? We go between the end of October all the way into the beginning of April. There is a peak season. The peak season is over December, January. The only reason it's peak is because that's when the Americans can get their holiday and therefore we're busier. There's no right or wrong time to go in this destination. It just depends on what your focus is. If you want to see the hugest icebergs, then go at the start of the season. If you want to go and see the full 24-hour sunlight, you go in the middle. If you want to go and see more of the marine life and the penguins, I always recommend February, particularly for the penguins, because February is when the penguin chicks turn into teenagers, so they're half fluffy, half of adult fur, waddling around, getting a bit stumbly and falling down like teenagers do. It's quite fun. So it's just picking the right time for you. To give you a bit of an idea of what you can expect with us, so an Antarctic Explorer sailing is one of our most used routes. It's about 12 days. To cross from the mainland to Antarctica, you can either sail the Drake Passage, which takes about a day and a half. It is true, you either have a Drake Shake or a Drake Lake. It can either be perfectly flat, or you can have 10-metre waves. There is no predicting which one happens. I've had a lake the last time I've done it, so I'm waiting for the Shake next time. I do think it's worth it. I think it's that medal to say you're going to Antarctica. But you can do it where you sail both directions. We could do one-way sailing and one-way flying. So we have flights that go from Punta Arenas in Chile down to King George Island in the South Shetland Islands. It's the only permanent airport in Antarctica. It's a gravel runway. And the planes that we use are chartered by a company that's painted them as penguins, so they are the only flying penguins in the world. And again, you can do that both directions or one way and one way. I like saying doing one-way flying, one-way sailing, because you get to try a little bit of every experience when we're doing that. So in terms of a 12-day sailing, you'd have about 8 or 9 days in the peninsula. You'll notice that I have a dotted line around there, because that means we don't know where we're going. We're going to get lost. We're off on an adventure. We have no itinerary, we're following the weather, following the ice flows, following the wildlife. The expedition team have about 5 plans a day that they're going to work from. Wherever it doesn't work right, plan A goes out, we'll do plan B. Something again doesn't work, we'll do plan C. So there's something happening in every day. And all these places that I know in the itinerary, so somewhere like Port Lockroy, Penguin Post Office is a British research station, we'll go there. We'll go to Deception Island, which is a beautiful volcanic caldera where you sail through what's the bellows. I go for a lovely hike in the volcano. We'll do them. But I can't tell you if it's going to be on day 2 or day 7 which way we're going to do it, because we just work around what's going to be in our favour for the weather. And as I mentioned, the wildlife just goes, so if we get distracted by a colony, we're going to get distracted by that colony on that. We also, very, very popular is Falkland, South Georgia as well. So very, very popular in terms of those who are looking for a little bit of the expedition history area as well. So if you are interested in the likes of Shackleton and Mawson and Admundson, then it's worth holding in on those ones as well. South Georgia, a beautiful location. In comparison to Antarctic Peninsula, you get a variety of wildlife. So in the Antarctic Peninsula, you'll get the gentoos, the Adeles, rockhopper penguins. They're about yay high. You'll get colonies, most places we go landing, but they're about 300-400 at a go. In South Georgia, you get the emperor penguins, which are much bigger, the ones with the gold crest. When we go and do a landing there, you've got about 10,000 in one go. So a different experience, different way to see the penguins. So if you've got the time, slightly longer, I would strongly recommend adding in South Georgia as well if you're going to go all that way. There you go, that's South Georgia. For those who are really, really adventurous, we also do East Antarctica. So this is the complete opposite side of the world, heading out from New Zealand, going down to the Ross Ice Shelf. This part of the world, about 2,000 humans visited a year, and that is including the research scientists. So very, very undiscovered. Ross Ice Shelf, amazing tabular ice. A lot more barren, but you are rewarded when you do see the wildlife there. So again, an Adelie penguin colony over in Cape Adare, just up here, 16,000 in one go. So there's not as much, but when you're there, stunning. We also usually try and stop in at Terranova Bay, which is the only Italian research station. We stop in there because literally the Italian research station go on our tunnel and go, "Hi Aurora, what are you up to? We've not seen anyone for 3 months. Do you want to come and have coffee?" That's the experience you get when travelling. For the Arctic, we go in our summertime. So the ships flip and do the Southern Hemisphere winter, Southern Hemisphere summer, and then we go up to the Arctic for the Northern Hemisphere summer. Again, between May and September, and it's about the right thing of what you want to do. The big guys, the polar bears, you want to be looking at around July and August is the strongest time for those. If you want to go and see a lot more of like the bird watching, I recommend May, June into July. And if you go right at the end of the season, you get the start of the Northern Lights viewings as well. The most popular destination we have in the Arctic is Svalbard, and that was all those photos I showed you right at the beginning. So Svalbard is the key location to be going to look for polar bears. It's also got a lot of Arctic hares, foxes, great variety in wildlife and marine life of the whales and bird life in particular. Some fantastic history in the expedition age as well. All those who are trying to get to the North Pole first go from there. And it is the most, Longyearbyen is the most northerly city in the world, so a great starting point at almost 80 degrees north. A great combination is our Jewels of the Arctic, so this is a little bit of everything that you can offer in the Arctic region. So we start in Svalbard for a few days, go find those polar bears, head down to East Greenland, places like Kongoska Fjord and Scoresby Sund, which is the largest fjord system in the world. Beautiful, stunning, super high mountains that you can see, and amazing icebergs that get trapped in these fjords, so very dramatic scenery. You also stop in Itokotumit, which is the most remote settlement in the Western Hemisphere. So 300 people live here, 6 months of the year it's blocked off by ice, so again they get very, very excited to see you and chat here. I played football with the local kids there. I was playing with about 10 8-year-olds. Guess who lost? And then head down towards Iceland at the end. Iceland's fantastic for marine life. Very, very strong whale watching in places like Isafjordur down here. And then a great way to finish in Reykjavik. You can also combine this with a little bit of land time if you want to go and see places like the Golden Circle and the volcanoes. And then for, again, the adventure side, the Northwest Passage of Canada. It's a really fantastic location if you want to see a little bit of the Inuit culture and a lot of the history from the Great Expedition Age. So people like Franklin, again, Edmondson, he turns up everywhere. But a great combination, and if you want to see the rare wildlife, so belugas, narwhals, they're very hard to find, but if you're going to see them, you're going to see them here. We can either do it as a half sailing, so start in Nuuk in Greenland and go through to Cambridge Bay as a half, or you can do the full Northwest Passage and finish in Nome in Alaska as a 30-day sailing as well. And then for those of you who are looking for something a little bit warmer, then we do have our Beyond the Pole sailings. So our Wild Scotland sailing, which is an incredibly popular journey every year, taking in the West Coast and the Hebrides and Shetland Islands, seeing Viking settlements from 4,000 years ago, the other half of the Giant's Causeway with these massive volcanic sceneries, even going out towards St Kilda, the most westerly part of the UK. So a great combination for nature and wildlife, and means you don't have to take a long flight to get there either. Stunning, and that's our own country. And then if you want actual hot, then I can recommend something like The Wake of Wallace. So Wallace, around the same time as Charles Darwin, realised the evolution of species, very, very close within a year of one another. And so it's very much nature focused. Start up in Sarong, go to Raja Ampat, where we're going to do things such as snorkeling with the whale sharks, down to Komodo National Park, where you've got these beautiful pink beaches as well as the Komodo dragons, and Wakatobi National Park, which is the second largest coral reef in the world after the Great Barrier Reef, Semarang for some fantastic historical Buddhist temples, and then we go into Indonesia and Borneo at the Kalimantan River, where we actually get the local fishermen who will take us in the longboats at night to do a night safari with all of the fireflies, and you get to hear all the animals at night as well as doing it in the day. So something still true expedition, but you don't need to wear 20 layers to go out there. And then we also have Costa Rica and the Panama Canal, very much focused on the national parks, the amazing bird life, fantastic sloths as well to be able to travel, and then heading through the Panama Canal. We have a guaranteed daytime sailing of the Panama Canal. So we have historians on board, and when we're sailing through it, we're outside on the top deck exploring and hearing the history of the Panama Canal whilst we're sailing through it. So something a bit different as well. that's everything I've got for you today. But if you've got any questions, either do let me know now or back at my stand. But thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Andy. I sort of dipped in and out. So sorry, is there any questions from anybody in this sort of scenario, or if people want to talk to Andy, obviously he'll be back at his desk later. Do we have any questions that they're desperate and itching to ask? Yes.
No, I'd like to talk to you later.
After? Okay.
Yes.
Yeah, absolutely, no worries. Any others?
Can I go?
Yes.
All expenses paid off Broadway travel trip.
Yeah, right.
Cool.
What's the
Okay.
starting price actually for the?
All of them are roughly, I mean, Costa Rica and Scotland are a little bit cheaper just because there's less permits and things we need, so it makes it a bit cheaper. But in terms of polar, you're looking at roughly about 600 per person per day as a guide price, and that's on any location, so you just sort of expand that by how many days. It's a rough sort of idea in terms of pricing. Obviously, if it's a busy sailing, the prices go a little bit higher when it's more in demand, but yeah, that's a rough sort of idea, 6 so per person per day.
Very good.
Thank you.
Thank you, Andy, for your time.
Thank you.
And thank you very much to everyone else.
Brilliant.
Thank you.
Thank you.